All right, guys, we are back. The varsity team, after a couple weeks, some situations that didn't let us do the live recap. The varsity team is back, recapping UFC Vegas 28, UFC Fight Night 189, UFC Rosenstruck versus Sakai. This is the Sherdog Live recap show. I am your host. My name is Keith Schillen. I'm a writer for Sherdog.com. Joining me, as always, is the senior, I forgot your title for a second, the senior editor for Sherdog.com, Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing real well. As I said to you before we went on the air, any fight night that is scheduled for 14 fights and we're done at 10 p.m. Eastern time, everybody's a winner.
Yeah, and enjoy it while it lasts, because next week we'd be doing this recap probably about 1:30 in the morning.
Absolutely.
Starting. Well, 1:30 on the East Coast.
It'll be a different energy for sure.
Yeah, 1:30 on the East Coast. We're not complaining, though, as I know the Europeans will give us crap if we complain as of it's like 7 a.m. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat. If you're on the Sherdog YouTube page, we have the chat open. We try to be as interactive as possible. This is live, so if any glitches happen, if my dog barks, anything like that, we apologize. We try to do this without editing, on the fly. So let's get right into it. Main event. We had top of the card. We had two heavyweight slugfest going on in the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik took on Augusta Sakai, two heavyweights that were in a big need to get a win, as they were both coming off losses. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, perfectly placed left hook. Before we get into it, how about a shout out to Michael Bisping, who said, go to the body with the right hand, follow with the left hook. And that's what it was, man. Can the Count get a performance bonus?
Well, he and Dominic Cruz should have gotten fight of the night, the way they were going at each other for 3 hours. So yeah, give that man another bonus.
Yeah. So one thing about Jairzinho Rozenstruik, the criticism on him was that he's been gun shy lately, that he was scared to pull the trigger against Ciryl Gane. He kind of was accused of that against Alistair Overeem before he found the kill switch. I even said he was a little bit like that against Junior Dos Santos, even though the fight was a little short. At first, it kind of seemed like that was what was going to be the problem. The two guys stared at each other. Augusta Sakai is a guy that fights in blitzes. He was standing on the outside. Both guys were kind of really respecting each other's power. But my big thing is, I don't think that's the way that Sakai should have fought. I thought the best avenue for victory for Sakai would be in a clinch battle. He's very good in the clinch. He got in the clinch where he, in other fights where he's a bigger guy, he kind of weighs on the guys, does a lot of damage inside the clinch. I thought that's where it should have went. What did you think about Sakai's strategy of like circling the outside of the cage and like I hated that.
I didn't absolutely. It made me nervous, but I didn't hate it. Now, a lot of this program tonight is going to consist of me singing your praises, because basically every fight that you and I picked differently, you were right and I was wrong. I think you went like 8 for 12 or 9 for 12 tonight. I went like for 5 for 12. But this fight, I picked Sakai, and I thought it was going to look like that. I thought Sakai's footwork was going to be good enough to keep him out of the danger zone, and it was, until about 5 seconds left in the round. I mean, until at 4 minutes and 55 seconds of round one, I think I probably would have given the round to Sakai slightly, but it doesn't matter. Rozenstruik finally caught him against the cage and just absolutely killed him. And you're right. Bisping called it,
Yeah.
Go to the body with the right hand. It opens up the left. Brilliant finish. And you can't plan for that power. You're no matter how good you are, unless you are prime Anderson Silva, your strategy can't involve, this guy will not touch me at all for 25 minutes. It doesn't happen. And it certainly doesn't happen at heavyweight. I mean, we're going to talk about matchmaking after this, but it's tough to matchmake a guy who can beat anyone on any given night or just completely lay an egg. And it all just depends on whether he catches them clean once.
Yeah. So I've always believed that one of the best things in sports is confidence. Like if you have confidence, you're going to perform well. That's why, a guy like John Jones does so well. He's so confident. He's no matter what situation he's in, he feels like, oh, Daniel Cormier's a better wrestler. I can out wrestle them. Other sports, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, all the greats, they're always so extremely confident. I feel like this could be the moment. Like this could spring Rozenstruik to much bigger things because now he might get his confidence back. He knows that one big punch, he can put your lights out, and that is huge in the heavyweight division.
It's a lesson that Derek Lewis had to learn, and he clearly has committed it to heart now. It doesn't matter how bad he's losing. He just has to survive, get to the end of the round, get back to his feet, because he knows, he believes in his power now. Maybe you're right, and maybe this is that moment for Rozenstruik.
So before Rozenstruik dropped Sakai, I actually had Rozenstruik winning. I know Sakai might have been a little more busy, but I thought Rozenstruik was landing the better shots. But the biggest issue I had why I didn't like Sakai's strategy was he kept getting trapped. Like when he was getting hit, they would like place and trap, and he'd always circle. As Bisping pointed out, shout out to him again. He kept circling to the same side. So basically, at one point, when Rozenstruik finally hit the kill switch, he's not even throwing at his face. He's throwing to the spot he's going to go to. We've seen guys do that in the past. We've seen a lot of guys. One of the best ever is former bantamweight champion Petr Yan. Like that's when we do breakdowns that we talked about him. That's the guy that throws to a spot. I'm trying. I feel like I'm forgetting about one big.
Israel Adesanya killed Robert Whittaker with that.
Oh yeah, Israel. Well, trust me, I'm going to sing Israel Adesanya's praise on Wednesday when we're doing the preview show. Is how much I love breaking down Israel Adesanya. Yeah. The problem with the circle to the fence, with a couple things. One, you keep circle at the same time, but also you can't back away. So when you're near the fence, you only have two ways to go: left or right. And that's one big issue. Now, if he wanted to move and he wanted to use movement, if he was more in the center, I would have liked it more. I still think his best strategy would have been in the clinch. But I really thought he let Rozenstruik really set the pace. Like Rozenstruik likes to throw, low output single strikes. He wants a battle like that, and that's not Sakai's game. Sakai's game is battling blitzes, trying to outwork guys. I think it was the opposite. I think Rozenstruik had some confidence, and I don't think Sakai did.
Hey, we have a note from producer Jay saying you need to move your mic a little closer to your mouth.
Okay, sorry.
There you go. A glimpse behind the curtain, all you folks.
There you go, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the X's and O's of that better than I do. I thought in general the fight was playing out the way I thought it would, where Sakai would just be able to stay away, make this kind of a low-paced, dull kickboxing match, frankly, and just not get caught. He got caught, and you explained perfectly why he got caught.
Yeah. I also thought that Rozenstruik was more aggressive, especially about 3 minutes in. He started picking up the aggression, and that obviously the more punches you throw, the better chance you're gonna have a win. So, to me, there's not that much to break down. Usually, we spend a lot of time on the main event. When the fight ends in, first round, less than 5 minutes in, there's not too much, especially the X's and O's. What do we think about Rose? I mean, what do we think about Rozenstruik going forward? Like, does this get your confidence back on him? Are you someone who like you're back on the train or what?
I definitely feel better about him than I did before the fight. Obviously, I picked Sakai to win, and Rozenstruik won. And as you pointed out, he won by being more aggressive. He won by taking the opportunities that Sakai gave him to land his offense. So that's a good thing. I still don't know what his ceiling is, but he justified his spot as a top 10 fighter and now a top 10 fighter on the rise.
Yeah.
Great night for him.
We got to remember, this guy's still new to MMA. He's kind of learning on the spot. There's definitely some question marks I have on him. Still the ground game. We haven't seen him get tested in the ground game since, I think it was like his UFC debut was the last time he really got tested in the ground game, which was terrible at that time. Now, that was a couple of years ago, but we still have that question mark. There's like a fly in here. We had a windows open. because
Mhm.
it's like 90 degrees here, and there's like a fruit fly or something that keeps touching my face. That's why I keep going like this. um, yeah, so I definitely feel better about him, and that division is really wide open. Uh, you know, am I picking him to beat Francis Ngannou like I did last time they fought, and I was made a terrible pick? No, but I definitely feel better. So, what would you do with it? Like, who would you match him with next?
Oh, well, this will make it real simple. I think he should fight Martin Tybura next.
That's the
And
exact
it's
name.
mostly for Tybura's sake. It's more wide open for Rozenstruik. Tybura has fought everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there are a couple of ranked heavyweights fighting soon. He's fought both of them. Like Oleinik and Spivak are about to fight. He's already fought both of them.
Yeah.
Let these two guys fight, because Tybura brings the threat of the ground game. You pointed it out as something that we still need answered about Rozenstruik. Certainly, we needed answered about him before he fights a Curtis Blades type.
Yeah.
That's that would be perfect. Tybura can handle himself on the feet. Clearly, he can take a punch. I mean, we're about to get there. And he underrated wrestler, underrated top position grappler. Good in the clinch. It would be a great test. Tybura is on a 5-fight win streak, so it's not like it's a step down for Rozenstruik, because Rozenstruik is probably a little overranked, not overrated, just overranked, because he blitzed some highly ranked guys right out the gate, whereas Tybura is probably a little underranked because he's on a 5-fight win streak, but the first and last fights are the only ones overranked fighters, and then it's a little softer in the middle.
Yeah. That's the exact name I had written down. I had Martin Tybura. I think sometimes just being on the same card just makes it easy. You line them up. They're lined up. They're on the same schedule. Obviously, Tybura took a lot more damage than. Sorry, I'm getting bit alive. We had the door open. I apologize. Tybura took a lot more damage. So I don't know if they'll have the same turnaround, but if possible, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense with X and O's. Tybura is definitely the more well-rounded fighter. Let me ask you this question: would you be happy with this serving as a main event of a fight night?
Rozenstruik versus Tybura?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd like it better than Rozenstruik versus Sakai, I think.
Yeah, but we weren't too happy with that being the main event.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm okay with it.
It wouldn't be a super strong one, but I'd now be a little more confident that it would at least be an entertaining fight that would advance the winner.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? Because my biggest worry about tonight was that Sakai was just going to win a dreadful fight that really didn't make anyone want to see either of these guys headline an event again. Jay Petrie of SureDog.com, he has a question for us based on Rozenstruik's post-fight interview, which has to do with matchmaking.
Which we haven't seen.
Right.
Guy, what's his question?
He called out only fighters ranked above him to fight next. Should that be the case? And this is who it would be: Ngannou, Miocic, Lewis, Gane again, Blades, and Volkov.
Okay, so let's take it from the top. Obviously, he's not getting a title shot, so that one's out. Nope. Stipe is too much of a diva. He's not fighting Rozenstruik.
No.
Who was the third one?
Lewis.
It sounds like he's fighting for the title, so that's out.
Yep.
What was next?
Gane in a rematch.
They just fought each other.
Yeah, they just fought, and nobody wants to see it again. Blades.
If I'm managing, Jairzinho, I'm staying as far away from Curtis Blades as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And who was the last one? And Volkov. Volkov could beat Gane. The problem is, and I understand that I only want to fight people ahead of me. Well, if everyone said that, there would never be a match made.
Right.
Because someone's got to go against someone below them. That's just how it is.
Yeah. There are a couple fights there I'd like to see, but I don't think Rozenstruik on his 1-fight win streak is in a position where he can demand that. I think he's going to have to take what they give him.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about it, though. We were surprised that he was thrown into a main event, being that, his last fight was a snoozer. He had the snoozer against Overeem. I was surprised he got these main event. Obviously, I think that'll be the trend going forward. If you're a heavyweight and you knock people out, you're always going to get attention. As one, the UFC always favors heavyweights. So there's always one heavyweight fight on a main card. Usually, obviously, I'm not when I say always, but generally speaking. What about Augustus Sakai? Now he's lost 2 in a row now. not a good showing. What would you do with him?
I mean, he can't fall that far. He can't just completely disappear through the floor.
I'll go first.
Please.
I'm using him now. Like, I'm using his, he just fought in the main event, so he's got a little bit of shine. I'm using him for the up and coming. We have a lot of up and coming heavyweights. I like Tal Aspinall. I think that's about the crossroads. So I want to use Sakai to bump up Aspinall.
That works for me. Like Aspinall has a ton of promise, and like it's not time to write off Sakai yet. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
Like if they were writing him off, I'd say just throw him in a cage with Ben Rothwell, and just call it smoke break. For that card. One below Sakai in the rankings right now would be Chris Daukaus, and he's another one kind of in the same spot as Aspinall.
Yeah, he's
young up and comer. Blagoy Ivanov, which they've already fought. Sergey Pavlovich and Olenek, which they've already fought.
Yeah. Guys, also, I apologize for coughing and stuff. I just got the vaccine yesterday, so I'm getting all those side effects. So I'm making a lot of seed. I'm getting bit by flies or whatever. I'm coughing. So shout out to where's his name? Alan McDonald. It's time to talk about the co-main event. Marcin Tybura versus Walt Harris. Alan McDonald is coming after you, Ben. Are you gonna stop doubting your boy, Marcin Tybura? That's 5 fights.
Are you kidding? Alan just admitted to listening to the preview. It's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week.
That's true.
For those who don't know, I said on the preview that Tybura came into this fight on a 4-fight winning streak, and going back over my previous notes, I had picked against him each of those 4 times, and it was apparently going to take 5, for me to learn my lesson, because I picked Walt Harris to win tonight, and for about 2 minutes, I felt really damn smart.
Yeah, Walt Harris looked like he did in the Overeem fight. Very, similar to the Overeem fight, where he hurt him bad. He threw everything at him. And Tybura, a little different as Overeem was on the ground and Tybura was standing up, kind of taking it. Then he threw one high kick, which Tybura rushed through for a double leg. And once it hit the ground, it was over.
And I'll say this. I think Harris looked better than he did in the Overeem fight. He had a little more poise. In the Overeem fight, I was like, oh man, he's blowing his tank right now. I thought he was a little more poised and a little more measured in fighting Tybura. Just probably a little less panicked. I think against Overeem, he thought, I've got to finish this right now. But then, that high kick, and credit to Tybura. He hoisted and spiked a 260-pound man like it was nothing. Like, that was a hell of a takedown.
Absolutely. Yeah, and fairness to Walt Harris, that was, if we remember the Alistair Overeem fight, that was the fight where, his daughter was murdered. It was his first fight back. He had to talk about it over and over and over again. So I can definitely understand why, he looked different in that fight than other ones, and why he was so emotional, why he put so much energy trying to end it so quick. Like, I understand that. The problem is, Walt Harris, he had a nice little run, but that run is over. He's been exposed. He's been completely exposed. He has not improved his wrestling, his ground game, his get-up game on the ground has not improved at all.
There's not really much that I can say about that other than that. Like, Tybura is, he is definitely an above-average wrestler and grappler for the heavyweight division. He's above average, but he's not spectacular, and Harris just had nothing to offer once it hit the ground. He was just in survival mode immediately. Tybura took whatever positions he wanted. He could be as patient as he wanted because Harris wasn't going to try anything. Yeah. He just very calmly secured position and then just beat him up.
When he got the second hook in, that's when I knew it was over. The one hook, you could still stand up. You got your whole, one side. Once he put the second one in, it was only a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna do what we could do with Walt Harris next. It is what it is. Like, he's a one-dimensional fighter. You're gonna have to get through his onslaught. It's gonna be scary if he connects. Going back to like the who's the Russian guy that he put out in seconds. What's his name?
Olenek.
Olenek, yeah, Alexei Olenek.
Yeah.
If he puts the Alexei Olenek out, like he has that kind of power. He's got that kind of speed, that kind of explosion. But as we said on the breakdown, every second that goes on in that fight, his chance of winning is going down. And if he gets taken down, it's really bad.
Yep, that's it. That's at 37. Like, I think you're right. I think the book's written on him.
Let's talk about Togura now. He's on a fight winning streak. Has he improved though? Like during this winning streak, like do you before the winning streak started, have you changed your view on him? Like I picked him to beat Walt Harris, but I'm still not high on him.
Well,
like I'm not feeling great about him.
He's on a 5-fight winning streak, and immediately before that, he lost back-to-back fights to Augusto Sakai, incidentally, and Shamil Abdurakhimov. Both times, he got caught and blitzed and splattered on the feet. I mean, that can still be done to him, but nobody's finishing him.
Yeah.
I tend to think that his offensive wrestling has gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree.
But
in fairness, his last two opponents were Greg Hardy and Walt Harris, like two guys who are very incompetent on the ground. I mean, Ben Rothwell was in there, and he is very competent in the ground. Mm-hmm. So,
but both Grishin and Spivak are good wrestlers.
That's right. Especially
he had a size advantage over both guys, but nonetheless, like he just completely neutralized them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's on the way up, so he's put himself in a nice position. Speaking of wrestling, Roman Dolidze put on a wrestling clinic against Laureano Staropoli.
Ooh.
This fight sucked. Yeah,
it was terrible, and it was extra bad because it was right after such a great fight, which obviously we'll get to next. But yeah, it was bad. And the thing is, I don't mind clinch heavy fights. I don't mind grappling heavy fights at all, as long as something is happening. But here they were just literally in the same position for like a minute at a time, 2 minutes at a time, with almost no effort by either guy to escape or advance or anything. It just nothing happened.
No. And I don't blame Staropoli. I mean, I blame Staropoli for not being able to get out of the hold, but Dolidze was like, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm a better wrestler. This is the safest route to victory. I'm going to win. I'm not going to take any damage. Let me just bear hug you. And then the referee allowed it too.
He sure did. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm generally against referees artificially breaking up positions. I'm not Joe Rogan, where I'm like, there should never be a referee stand up from the ground. Like, if you want to get up, learn to get up. I'm not quite there, but I can almost see why he didn't break some of these up, because they were just going to go straight back to the same position anyway.
Sure.
That's part of it. But not much else to say. I will say one thing. I give Dolidze props, because when he came out, for weigh-ins yesterday and then for the fight tonight, he looks remade physically. He looks like a middleweight now. Mm-hmm. Against Trevin Giles just a few months ago, he looked like a severely sucked out light heavyweight. Yeah. So I know they said on the broadcast he's been at Extreme Couture for I think 3 camps now. So this would be his second one at middleweight. And a lot of the guys that work out at Extreme Couture go to the UFC PI for strength and conditioning anyway. Mm-hmm. But whoever it is that's working with them, whether it's the PI or it's Nixick at XC, like they've brought him down to 185 the honest way. That means good things for the future. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not an exciting win. I saw someone tweet out that, Dolidze won, but not any fans tonight. He's not going to be very popular going forward. But this is the guy who lost his last fight. So he did. When you lose 2 in a row, you could be out. So and you pointed out, you pointed this out, and for how he looks, he's not a dynamic athlete. Like, he's clearly strong as an ox, but he's not explosive. He's not fast on his feet. If he sticks around in the UFC and he wins a lot of fights, a lot of them are going to look like this. Absolutely. He is going to be a grinder. Like, a lot of his fights are just going to be top control, and if I can choke you out, I will, or I'm just going to mug you in the clinch. He's going to be middleweight John Fitch. Yeah.
He's built like Yoel Romero, but he's definitely more Darren Elkins.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's just what it's going to be. And I go back to so we're going to move on, but the clinch area there was like what I would call in wrestling stalemate positions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the referee could have been more active, but I think you're absolutely right that even if he did get more active, it would just gone right back to the same position. It's just part of the game. Before that, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Baeza. I have notes, so people can tell I'm keep looking down. I have notes all over the place. Like I usually try to stay fairly organized. I didn't give him enough space. Absolutely incredible fight. It is fight of the year candidate. I think it's probably the leading candidate right now. It's fight of the round of the year. The third round was incredible. I thought that was round of the year leader. Half the year's already over with. I don't. When we do the Bulls and the Bears and the stock, even though Baeza lost, like I don't feel like his stock went down. In fact, I actually think his stock went up in a loss.
You're stealing the thoughts right out of my head. Because, despite this being such a great fight, it left me feeling less high on Ponzinibbio, and it left me feeling better about Baeza in both cases than I did 24 hours ago. Yeah. Like, obviously, I'd be even higher on Baeza if he'd won, but I feel better about Baeza as a prospect and future contender than I did 24 hours ago, even though he lost. And conversely, I am less confident about Ponzinibbio's ability to return to being a top 10 fighter, despite the fact that he won and he won in such an incredible fashion. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there's so many things. Like, I don't know if I want to go down to the like technical breakdown, or if we're going to get into more of the, the thing that stands out to me, I never say this. I believe skill is more important than experience.
Okay.
But every once in a while, you have a moment where, to me, like experience really mattered, and that this is one of those fights where Ponzinibbio won because of experience, because he's been in these wars, and he didn't panic. And I think what happened was Baeza let everything go, and he's never had a fighter still standing there when he's done that, and still coming forward and pressing the action. And I think he mentally broke a little bit. I know that sounds crazy to say for a guy that had a fight of the year candidate. It was incredible. He was still throwing super hard, but he started fighting off his back foot. He was throwing arm punches at that point. It wasn't stepping in. Suddenly his leg kicks were gone. He weren't throwing them anymore. Mm-hmm. It became into like a rock. Like it seemed like he was trying to answer the shots instead of playing his game anymore. Like he gets hit with a shot by Ponzinibbio, and he's trying to land a big shot back instead of doing what he was doing. Go back to the leg kicks. And the leg kicks were spectacular for him early.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Ponzinibbio was ice skating a lot. Like even the ones that the commentary team didn't notice, Ponzinibbio would go to step in and his leg would give out on him. So a lot of things I liked from Baeza. He showed me a high guard today. That I never really saw that with him. And I really saw an ability to roll, especially in the first round. He was rolling with his punches really well. It was just very hard to hit when he was against the cage. That wasn't the case just a little while ago against Matt Brown.
Props to the guys at, I believe he's at MMA Masters. Props to them, because they clearly scouted. They watched the film on Ponzinibbio, and they were prepared to deal with the boxer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it probably is just general improvements in his skill set, but I think it was also very successful scouting for the opponent that was going to be in front of him.
So shout out to our buddy Bass. He's a frequent listener to the show. He's frequently involved. He's fantastic. He says that he thought Baeza won. I disagree. I gave second answer to Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, I gave the second and third to Ponzinibbio. I mean, let us know, Baz, which other round you gave to Baeza. I assume it was the third, but let us know, because the third, if I rewatch it with a more analytical eye and I'm not just like marking out about the fight, maybe I'd score it differently. But yeah, I ended up giving the second and third to Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, I think sometimes that was the fight that Ponzinibbio wanted. So naturally, you'll start leaning towards him.
Mm-hmm.
Baeza didn't want that fight. Baeza wanted the first round fight where he's moving, he's kicking, he's just being faster than him. He was beating Ponzinibbio to the punch. He gave the third round to Ponzinibbio. I agree with you when you're saying, like, I don't feel more confident in Ponzinibbio moving forward, but I'll say this. One question we said, we said two questions would be answered. And we didn't really say that it would be, like, it'd have to be one or the other. And in this case, I think it was both. It was, is Ponzinibbio still a top welterweight? Or is Miguel Baeza the real deal? And now I feel like, in my opinion, it's yes to both.
Yep.
And I didn't think that was going to be a possibility before the fight.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I am concerned about Ponzinibbio. Just, he looked fine. And the thing is, I know this is technically Ponzinibbio's second fight back from his 2-year layoff. But the fight against the guy that beat him, was it Sato?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was short and it was weird. This was his first, like, really full fight back.
How
many guys have we seen?
No. It's, Takeshi Sato was the guy.
No, it's Jingliang Li.
Yeah,
sorry,
that was who
Li.
Baeza beat in his last fight.
Not even the same country. All right. Anyway, the Li fight was, short and weird. This was his first, like, real full fight back. How many times have we seen people come back from 2 years off and just look completely unprepared to deal with the calf kick?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, well, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, he's the most obvious example, but there's been a bunch of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a different world than we were 2 years ago. We also had a big pandemic in between that, but yeah, it's just different. So the also thing that's concerning, Ponzinibbio has been a guy who's already taken a lot of damage, and then you have a fight like this added onto it at that age. But also the reason why I'm not as high, like I'm obviously think he needs to be in main card fights. If his next fight's a main event on a fight night, I'm quite okay with that, or high on a pay-per-view. Yeah, that's cool. But it goes back to what we talked about welterweight. The pool is just so deep. There's just so many guys.
Yep.
That's my biggest issue. Like, would I favor over Leon Edwards? No. Would I favor him over Colby Covington? No. Would I favor him over, obviously not Usman? So what do we do with Ponzinibbio next?
I like the idea of just matching these two guys up with the winner and loser of Maia versus Muhammad next week.
Okay. That was the first one I wrote. When you first were saying it, the way you were saying it, I think you were going to say that you're just going to match them up against each other again. Like,
just run it back. It'll be great.
Before I give you mine, I wanted to ask you this. I forgot. A year from now, Baeza wins that fight, right?
Yes.
6 months?
Yep. Yes. Anytime after tonight, I think Baeza probably wins it. I mean, you said that he, like something in him kind of broke when Ponzinibbio didn't go away. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but to me, because I agree, that doesn't mean like he got scared. It just means he was in a situation that he had not been in before and didn't know what to do.
Yeah. No.
Like Ponzinibbio gets rung up in every single one of his fights. It's why he's fucking awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he was like, oh, I got hurt real bad, but I'm still in this fight. I know exactly what to do. He put together a 7-fight winning streak, and his opponents had him on the ropes in just about every one of those fights at some point, and he still won. He knows how to come back from adversity and win. Baeza, this might be the first time that his opponent didn't go away after he put it on him. So yeah.
So when I'm looking at, I wrote down Maia Muhammad winner. That was the one I had next to Ponzinibbio. That was the first one, and I'm scrolling through the names of welterweights, and then I cross it out as fast as I possibly could because there's one fight I can't believe we haven't got. Vicente Luque. Ponzinibbio, Vicente Luque. I never
it's
knew.
Hard to believe they haven't fought already.
I never knew I wanted that fight until I saw his name. And I'm like, oh my god, could you imagine that as like co-main event on a fight? Well, even not even those two guys deserve a main event.
That's a fight night main event.
Yeah, book it now. Ponzinibbio versus Vicente Luque. That's the fight I want.
Sounds good to me. I mean, if Muhammad beats Maia, which we'll do the preview on Wednesday, but I'm probably going to favor him to do so. Muhammad versus Ponzinibbio is another just hell of a fight.
That's a hell of a fight too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Muhammad versus anybody's usually. I mean, Ponzinibbio versus anybody is pretty jamming. Uh, I'm going much lower on the list than the loser of Muhammad and Maya for Baeza. I want Baeza to have a bounce back fight. I still want him to face like a veteran who would be a test for him, but I want to be. I always think of it when I do matchmaking. I always think from the UFC sense.
Okay.
I want to bounce back for him. So I was thinking someone that would be a test, but it's definitely winnable. And I went with the winner of Tim Means versus Danny Roberts. Two veterans.
That's funny. When you started talking, I was like, does Tim Means have a next fight lined up? There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Anyways, everyone's going crazy for the fight of the year candidate, round of the year. It's I'm going to have a hard time picking a fight to beat that one. Before that, Dusko Todorovic versus Gregory Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez looked fantastic.
He looked sensational. I picked this one wrong.
So did I.
But everyone except for Sherdog editor-in-chief Mike Fridley picked this one wrong. He gets the Super Cojones award for being the only one to pick it. But the thing that I felt most sure about in this fight did not play out that way. I just looked at Rodriguez, who destroyed Josh Fremd 3 weeks ago. I was like, there's no way that guy's going to be okay in the third round after cutting back down to 186 from whatever he walks around at.
He's a big man.
He looked fine on the scale. He looked fine in the cage. He looked fine in the third round. I mean, he won the third round. Well, he won all 3 rounds. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
He's here a little sooner than I expected, but he's a problem.
Yeah, I scored at 30-27 for Rodriguez. Rodriguez is one of these guys. So it's so funny because these guys' avenues to the UFC, and I take a lot of pride in my Contender Series coverage. I feel like I do a fairly well job of seeing prospects. Todorovic was a guy I was extremely high on coming in during tape study. I thought he'd do extremely well. And Rodriguez was that, I think he could be UFC level, but, win 2, lose 2, be out of the UFC. Todorovic, I thought, could be a top 15 guy when, boy, was I wrong. And about both of them, because Rodriguez looks like he's improved massive from his days, just a year ago on the Contender Series. He is more composed now. He was more of a brawler back then. He's composed now. He had real snap on his punches and some real speed. I love that he went to the body. I love that he went for takedowns himself. That was an area that the only takedowns was from him. That was an area that I thought he would lose the wrestling battle. He had a judo throw in there. He's fantastic. And then to Todorovic, one, I thought no urgency for a guy who was losing. And he was pulling his punches. And if people don't know what I mean by pulling your punches, they kept talking about him bringing his head back to avoid. He was doing it while he was punching too. And what you mean is it's you throw you see this a lot in guys who spar for the first time. They're so concerned about getting hit, so they go like this and they kind of punch and pull their head back at the same time. He was doing that a lot, which obviously you lose power when you're supposed to be stepping in on a punch. Just really basic stuff that just looked terrible for a guy that I was so hyped about.
Yeah, I'm starting to fade Todorovic really badly. And I agree with you. I'm a little higher on Rodriguez. I thought of him kind of because we talked about it on the preview with that big pack of LFA middleweight champs that all came to the UFC. I was like, okay, if he ends up somewhere in the middle of Ian Heinisch and Marcus Perez, or in the middle is like Andrew Sanchez, where on one end you're on the border of the top 15, on the other you washed out of the UFC after 4 or 5 fights, he'll be somewhere in there. He might actually have a higher ceiling than even the Sanchez's and Heinisches.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go too crazy yet because he beat just Todorovic. I don't want to put him up in Heinisch, but yeah, I agree. Technically sound. I think Heinisch is such a great athlete that that's tough to beat that. But man, he looked great, and this is a ground fighter. We didn't really see his ground. That's what he's known for.
Yeah.
Before that, we had and now this is where my order got messed up from what I originally wrote down and then what actually happened. I believe the next fight before that was Montana De La Rosa versus Ariane Lipski.
Yep.
I know I've been much higher than Montana De La Rosa than you. And what I like about Montana De La Rosa is this. We both saying that her stand-up needs to improve greatly. I seem to think her stand up's a little bit better than you do, but we're in agreement that that's definitely not her strength. What I like about her is she knows what she is and she goes to it. I think about a couple of weeks ago, Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer lost to Norma Dumont because she never once looked to grapple.
Right.
For some reason, she abandoned her strength. Montana Drillos did that. She's like, all right, I'm going to stand up for a little bit, about a minute. Okay, did I give you guys enough stand up now, coach? Let me go wrestle.
That's about all you can say. Yeah, and her strengths are prodigious. I mean, yeah, she got tapped out by Mackenzie Dern early in her career. A lot of people get tapped out by Mackenzie Dern. Other than that, she is one of the better grapplers in this division. And I mean, part of it is just because she is big and strong. I can't get over that. Like every time she fights, she is big and strong for flyweight. And she's just a good grappler. Took down Lipski effortlessly. And just, I mean, Lipski's never been a great positional grappler, but she's been very aggressive. You know, aggressive in throwing up submissions off her back, doing things to create scrambles. She had none of that for De La Rosa. De La Rosa was heavy on top, secure in her positions, just beat the crap out of her.
Yeah, it's 2 fights in a row where Lipski has looked really bad on the ground. I mean, she got beat up by Antonina Shevchenko on the ground in her fight previous to this. That's a girl whose stock, I mean, she came in with a little buzz in the UFC. I mean, her stock is all but gone at this point. And De La Rosa, she's got a lot of experience now in the UFC. She's got a lot of fights in the UFC. She's still only 26. You know, she's definitely not a prospect anymore. So I don't want to throw out the prospect name, but she's still in the earlier part of her career, and she's got a lot of experience. Like, I like De La Rosa.
Yep, I do too. And I mean, I favored her to win this, even though I'm harsher on her striking than you are. But she's not a prospect in the sense that, you know, she has a lot of fights in the UFC, and hell, this being the wide open division that it is, she might be 2 wins from a title shot. If you're in that situation, you are by definition not a prospect. But she feels like a prospect in that she is still improving.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fair assessment. I totally agree. Like, I feel like we're not at her ceiling yet.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
My hope at this point, honestly, going forward, is that I hope she doesn't get thrown into a title situation too quickly. Because other than featherweight, which, I mean, featherweight doesn't even exist. Like, there is no featherweight division in the UFC, really.
No.
Other than that, flyweight is the quickest one to get a title shot right now.
Absolutely. You have a dominant champion.
Just done such damage that anyone who strings together 3 or 4 wins is going to be right there. I hope
Montana Lauren Murphy
does not come along too quickly.
Yeah, unless you're Lauren Murphy. Unless you're Lauren Murphy, she's never going to show.
Unless you're Lauren Murphy.
Poor Lauren Murphy. Before that, we got the kickoff. So that was the fight that kicked off the main card. That was not the fight that was supposed to kick off the main card. The fight that was supposed to kick off the main card was Tom Breeze versus Antonio Arroyo. Tom Breeze was pulled. I'm going to speculate. I think it's safe to speculate. We obviously don't know what happened with Tom Breeze. He was just medically not cleared to fight. Obviously, he could have got an injury. I'm going to speculate and say it's his ongoing issue with anxiety. This is the 3rd time now that the day of an event, during the event, he pulled out.
Yeah.
I tweeted this out. A lot of people agree with me. A lot of people didn't agree with me. At this point, he's holding a roster spot that someone else should have. I don't think it's fair anymore to his opponents. It's 3 times now. I know it was Alawali Bangbosi. It happened to him. Happened to Ian Heinisch. Now it's happened to Antonio Arroyo. It's not fair. It's not fair. And it's not even that. It screws up the whole card. Because, and obviously I'm not saying like, oh, if something happens fight night, don't pull this guy, because shit happens. That's happened before. Guys get hurt. Guys, whatever. I mean, Kevin Randleman, the main event got canceled when Kevin Randleman slipped on a pipe in the back. But when they're not ready to fight and that fight gets pulled, now you're telling De La Rosa and Lipski, who thought they were up in a half hour, you're up now.
Yep.
And the ones after that, oh, you're up right after them. Like it's not fair for the other fighters. It's not fair for, you know, guys in the division who are fighting on the regional scene that they could have been fighting Antonio Arroyo tonight. I hate to say it's time to cut the guy. It's time to cut the guy.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a straight pink slip either. They can just tell him. And again, this is assuming that it wasn't something strictly physical.
Absolutely.
But they could just tell him, look, dude, go get well. You are still just 29 years old. And the thing about him is he's not some chump. He has enormous upside. He has top 10 talent.
Yeah.
You know, when we've seen him at his best, he is a fantastic fighter. So it would even be in the UFC's own best interest to just say, look, we'll hold your spot for you, but let's not book any fights for you for a while, you know, and until you get it sorted out.
Yeah, so Bass mentioned, he said about that he needs to get treatment, as you were saying, and that we're all pulling for him. Mm-hmm. Not even just as a fighter, we're pulling for him as a human being. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not wishing ill will against the guy,
right?
But unfortunately, his job is to fight, and he's not doing it. Yep. I want him. We've talked about how real we both believe that mental illness is extremely real thing, as real as cancer, as real as any other disease. You don't ignore cancer treatments. You don't ignore if you had a torn ACL, something like that. I agree with you. I agree with Bass. Something needs to be done. Sorry. Before that, I got to look over the prelims for a second because it got a little screwed up for me. I believe the headline and prelim fight was Ilir Latifi versus Tanner Boser. Yes. What happened was I went off. My problem is I went off the UFC website, which I should never do. And I wrote down. So what I do is I write down my notes. I give like sections, and I give it I write the names of the fighters and leave a space where I'm going to write notes, what I want to say. And then I had Makwan Americani's fight way up. The UFC website had it way up. But yeah, it was Ilir Latifi versus Tanner Boser. Now this is one of the fights that had the most controversy in scoring. It was a couple of one that was some controversy scoring, but this definitely was one of them where it seemed a lot of people were split. A lot of people scored it for Ilir Latifi. A lot of people scored it for Tanner Boser. And then there was one human being walking on earth who went with the draw. That human being was me. I went with the draw. So, Ben, how did you score the fight?
Did you score it a draw because you gave Boser a 10-8 second round?
That's how I scored it. When you turn your back away from someone, you could have argued that Herb Dean could have stopped the fight right then. Because if to be honest, why don't you stop the fight? You say, you're not saying an eye poke, you're saying a punch. If you gets punched, the guy turns his back away and stops defending himself, and his opponent comes in and starts punching him. How does that not justify to stop the fight? The guy got punched and he doesn't want to fight anymore. He turned his back. He ran away from him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much other than that, man.
So I'm sorry. So who did you say you scored it for?
I did score it for Latifi.
Yeah.
But I don't like it because the first and third rounds were Latifi rounds, but they were close and competitive, and the second was not.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at your 10-8 second round and a draw, but Boser's not gotten any better. Like, I was high on him for a while, but it's because he was better than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And he still is better than I thought he was, 5 fights ago, but I don't think he's gotten better. And not only was he surprisingly good, but he was physically transforming. He was losing a ton of weight, obviously just a result of being able to train full time,
sure,
out of the regional scene. But I'm still waiting for an advancement in skills. He got badly out wrestled by Latifi. And I know Latifi's a little tank. He's like a 5'9", 240-pound dude, but he just got Boser down effortlessly. And Boser just didn't seem to be able to do much.
Do you think Tanner Boser has a little Walt Harris treatment? What I mean by that is Walt Harris was the guy that he started in the UFC, looked kind of terrible. People kind of ragged on him. Then he kind of started surprising people and winning. And then the pendulum got swung too much where next minute, whoa, Walt Harris is the real deal. And then we've seen on the last run recently that now he still has some major holes. Do you feel the same way about Tanner Boser? And I'm not saying Tanner Boser is on Walt Harris's level. I mean, just the comparison.
Well, and I think it's even more extreme for Harris because Harris washed out of the UFC. He lost two and he was gone. He went back to Alabama and won a couple fights and came back. It's a combination of that, and it's a combination of he knocked out a couple of just people that were ranked high enough that it was undeniable. And it's not that Walt Harris was necessarily a future top 5 guy, but that he can knock one out if he gets in the right situation. And just those kind of people are very hard to rank. They're very hard to match make, which is, kind of what we talked about off the top. But yeah, it might have been some of the pendulum thing with Boser. And dude, I believe he's under 30 as well, which in the UFC, dude, he's got
19.
literally 10 years to keep improving.
Yeah.
So I'm not writing him off, but getting out wrestled by Ilir Latifi isn't on that's not on the menu if he does want to be a top 10 heavyweight at some point.
So I scored it a draw 28-28. You scored it for Latifi. If I had to go one way or the other, I would have gave it to Latifi. I would say Latifi won the 10-9 MMA scoring fight, but I thought Boser won the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Pride rules. Boser gets this one.
Yeah. Some of the things I thought he did well. I thought Boser did well early defending the takedown by using the tools that you're supposed to defend takedowns with. One of which I'm going to talk later about guys who didn't do. One, use movement, so you're not a stationary target. Two, you work behind a jab, which is, you have a line of defense. You have to get through your jab. And three, you use a lot of feints, so you draw out their attacks. Did that well. What he didn't do well is when he actually did get taken down, there was no movement. He just said, he took a big breath and said, I can't get this big guy off me. I'm not going to do anything.
The third round, absolutely. That's the story. That's the literal story of the third round.
Yeah. As far as Latifi, like, it's cool that he got a win at heavyweight. Like, that's cool. He's not. He looked terrible to me. I mean, he's always been a wrestler with some power in his hands, but that power doesn't seem like it's translated to heavyweight, and it's just going to be, can he out wrestle somebody and keep his very limited gas tank in check in those 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Looking at Latifi, I think he's 37 or 38, and looking at how he looked tonight, where, I mean, he didn't look fat. He just looked like a circus strongman. Like he should have had like a lion print singlet with like only one shoulder, like, yeah. Lifting some like big barbell with the round things on the sides. He looked like a literal circus strongman. He does not look like a man who can make 205 anymore.
No.
So this may just be what we get from here on out. We're just like, he'll be there. He can beat some dudes. He's going to lose to some dudes. None of it's going to surprise you very much. And the fights themselves probably will not be that exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to dignify Boz's most recent string of comments.
He loves,
I'm not going to even immortalize them over the mic. I'm not going to let the word Bullar-esque like enter the vocabulary on their shit. I just said it.
I love that guy. Sorry, my dog's barking for some reason.
Your dog doesn't like KB Buller either.
Yeah.
He's like, why are we talking about this dude? He's headed to LFA or something.
Yeah. Hey, zip it. Sorry. He's like she's literally right underneath my feet. Between I got the dog, I got the bugs bite me, I got COVID. Before that, Muslim Salikov versus Francisco Trinaldo was surprisingly, I was entertained. I thought it was one of the better fights of the card. What I learned was Trinaldo he can still stand up. He's better than I thought. His gas tank was better than I thought. However, and his chin is still like legendary, but he's lost some speed. So he's going to get dropped and hurt in fights that he didn't get hurt before because his reactionary time is not there.
Agreed. Salikov is a guy that thrives off bursts of offense, and he was able to land them on Trinaldo. Yeah. Trinaldo's lost just the top gear has slipped just a little bit, which that in and of itself is pretty impressive out of a 42-year-old man. I mean, he looks like one of those face app things because his head looks 30 years older than his body. But, right. Father Time still undefeated. And good performance by Salikov.
I like that. I saw Salikov wrestle a little bit like that. We haven't really seen him offensive wrestle that much. And I mean, his body kicks and his power is legit. He's on a 5-fight winning streak himself now. So this is a guy we got to start looking. I mean, obviously it's that division where you win 5 fights in a row, you don't even get noticed. You're fighting on the prelims. Right. But I mean, I feel like he's kind of now deserves, the guys just outside the top 15. Like his next fight needs to be something like that.
I agree because he's not beating ranked guys yet, but they're all good guys. Nordine Taleb, Laureano Staropoli, who we just saw on the main card tonight, Eliseo Capoeira, and now Trinaldo. They're all good guys.
Yeah.
Like it's almost getting to the point where it's going to be tough for them to find people outside the top 15 that aren't a step back for him competitively. So he's doing it the right way. And no time to waste because he is 36. I mean, he only looks half Trinaldo's age. He actually is 36. And he does have a style that does kind of depend on speed.
Yeah. Before that, we had the one fight that I had out of order. Makwan Americani versus Kamuela Kirk. Man, I disagree. All right, that's all I'll say. I gave the fight to Americani. I scored it 29-28. However, I'm not upset about it because to me there wasn't enough action to really justify being upset. Either fight.
Okay.
How did you score the fight?
I scored the fight 29-28 Americani. I gave him the first and third rounds. I thought the third was debatable. I thought the first was pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not mad at a 29-28 scorecard the other way either. Whoever scored it 30-27 for Kirk needs to be taken out behind the barn and shot. Like I don't know.
It's hard to score the first round for him.
Yep.
It's one of those ones, and I had this discussion ongoing battle. Is if you defend takedowns, you score points,
which
is not true.
I don't think it's true, and the UFC booth was even saying something along those lines. I strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. What sport do you score? Do you get points for defense? There's not a single sport in the world you get points for defense. No. You could go baseball. You could have the best pitcher in the world. He can pitch all 9 innings, not give up a single run. Well, if your offense don't score a run, you're going to extra innings.
That's
so it. To me, that felt like, he stopped a whole bunch of takedowns. He must be winning.
Which I feel actually the exact opposite way. Like if you had a 5-minute round of MMA where there wasn't a single strike thrown, one guy attempted 10 takedowns and got all 10 stuffed, I'd still give that guy the round.
Absolutely.
Like he was controlling the fight. He was at least forcing his opponents to, react and defend himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I might call it 10-10, but I'm certainly not going to score that round for the guy that was defending him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I've said before on our shows, I think the other half of takedown defense is making the guy pay for trying.
That's right.
If he tries and you stuff a takedown, but he feels comfortable trying again, you're not winning that round.
That's right. So we both come from wrestling backgrounds, and we know in the sport of wrestling, if obviously there's no punching and stuff, but if we're wrestling and you keep shooting on me over and over again, I just keep stopping the takedown, but I don't shoot back, they're gonna hit me with stolen. I'm actually gonna get stolen. You're actually gonna eventually get points.
I'm sorry.
No, good.
Well, Boz is asking in the chat, and Jay Petrie of Sherdog is asking, you can get points for defense in American football. Well, yes, if you score a safety or you take an interception or fumble all the way back, but
son of a bitch,
as soon as you got the ball, that's offense.
You got the ball, though. You got the ball, so it turns
or even a safety
now becomes offense.
Like a safety is the equivalent of somebody shooting, like it's the equivalent of like Josh Barnett shooting a takedown on Travis Brown and Brown elbowing the shit out of his head. Like he did more than just defend the takedown.
Yeah,
he made him pay for it.
Yeah, I guess a safety is like a defense. I mean, because you tackle the opponent in the end zone. It's like it's like the exact. It has to be in the end zone. It's got all right, but you know what?
But
you guys got me.
Fair point. Fair play to all the pedants
son of a
out there.
bitches got me. I thought about every single sport, but basketball and hockey and soccer. But you guys got me on that one. Speaking of got me on that one, Alan Patrick got off the hook by the best thing that happened to him. He got poked in the eye. I'm not gonna do this. I'm sure enough people will say he was fake. I don't do that. I don't do that. The only person who knows how hurt he was him. I don't like doing that. But Mason Jones was putting it on Alan Patrick before that. Patrick, he hit him with everything but the kitchen sink, maybe the kitchen sink too. it was one of these performances that he didn't get his first UFC win, and people are still going crazy for this dude. It's a tough test. You got a veteran guy in Alan Patrick, and he's a young fighter, and he looked fantastic.
He did. I mean, I can't think of a time I've ever been this high on a fighter who is 0-1 with 1 no contest in the UFC. Than Mason Jones.
I know.
And dude, I don't blame Alan Patrick at all, because again, and we've talked about this in other prominent fights recently that have been stopped because of fouls. It was a bad eye poke for one thing. Like you watch it in slow motion, and it's almost like Jones is just following him with his finger for like 2 feet, like some Three Stooges shit. But I mean, he fouled him. Only Patrick knows whether he could see or not. But at the same time, it's not admirable or heroic. But if he was getting it put on him, and he has a way out, he would be silly not to take it.
Absolutely.
Like all the people saying he should have gone out on his shield, like don't pay his house payment.
Yeah.
And if Jones is mad, he should have kept his hand closed.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. It sucks. It's part of the sport. Eye pokes. Yes, I know there's other gloves and different designs and all this, but guys, we've been talking about that for years. Like, we're not going to do that, but no reason to run this back. To me, Mason Jones is the winner, and I don't think Alan Patrick is signing that contract, anyways.
No.
But what we think we've got to remind each other is if you stopped the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight about 2 minutes into the second period, when about the time this happened for an eye poke, you would have said, "Oh, Santiago Ponzinibbio quit. There's no way he was going to come back," and he did. So we're not likely, but maybe Alan Patrick could have came back. He could have, he has those spinning back fists and all this weird stuff. Maybe he would have landed something. We've seen it before. Speaking of spinning back fists, I was doing tape study today for the next card, and Steven Peterson was getting his ass handed to him his last fight, and then hit a spinning back fist and won. So, speaking of getting your ass whooped,
oh boy,
the UFC does not like Tabitha is it Richie? Is that how I say it?
Ricci.
I'm sorry. Versus and you got to help me out with the other one, Manon Fiorot.
Manon Fiorot. Yeah.
My French is not that good, but Ben is much better in French class than I was. Manon Fiorot, she was just too big, too fast, too strong, too accurate, too long, too athletic, too technical, too not having short notice. There was levels to MMA, and there was about a skyscraper between the floors they were on.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the big. This reminds me of who was the girl that got beat up by Valentina Shevchenko on her debut?
Priscilla Cachoeira.
I'm not saying this French girl is, reigning champion, one of the most dominant fighters in our sport. But you get my point. Like, that was that bad of a mismatch.
Agreed. And we knew it going in. She was a massive favorite. This was a last minute step up. I believe Manon Fiorot was supposed to fight Ukrainian girl.
She was going to take on
Marina Moroz.
Yeah.
I think she probably would have crushed Marina Moroz, but I would have liked to see that because Moroz has a tricky, aggressive ground game that we might have had.
Sure.
We might have actually seen Fiorot tested on the ground. Plus, Moroz is an actual flyweight. She's pretty big and strong. This was not that. I mean, and I said on the preview, like, she's going to just crumple her into a ball and punt her into the third row. And that's pretty much what happened. The question now, really, to me, is what kind of future does Ricci have at strawweight?
Sure, Richie or Furrow? Oh, Richie. I'm sorry,
Ricci,
strawweight.
At strawweight, yeah. Strawweight, which is where she normally fights, where she fought like 3 weeks ago in LFA.
Yeah.
Because she looked, in some ways, she actually looked better than I expected. I thought, because Ricci, again, she had a couple fights in Brazil as like a 19-year-old. She came back and she fought 3 times in LFA in the last 6 months. But the women she beat in LFA are all like, 0-1, 1-4.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what she looks like against a real live UFC strawweight in her next fight.
Is she part of the Astro fight team? Is she?
No, she was not asked for fight team. No,
that's
asked
usually
for
that's
FC.
usually their realm.
Yeah,
They usually like
yeah.
that.
She apparently you can build your record up that way in LFA now. So
yeah. Oh, you're 50-0. Let's
yeah.
go against this person who's 0-5. For real, people are going crazy for her. Like I literally people were tweeting out she's a contender. This that in that division. Like 2 more wins and she's probably fighting for the title.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about Montana De La Rosa and how I hope she doesn't win 2 more fights and have to fight Shevchenko. With Fiorot, she is less experienced than De La Rosa, but older. Like she's 31 and she has what, like 7 fights now?
Yeah,
it's trickier for her. Like
sure. But she's young in the sport, and so
young in the sport.
You brought up Moroz. I was thinking that like while I was watching the fight, I was thinking, imagine if they switched. Like Fiorot was the one who went out, and Moroz was in. Like Moroz would have won that fight, but it wouldn't have been this bad. That's all I was thinking of. Before that, Yusuf Salal versus Sean Woodson for a split decision win for Sean Woodson. I thought Woodson won the second, third round. Like I don't think it was any controversy.
Yeah, I like Zalal like looked all surprised, and threw his hands up and like looked incredulous when the decision was read out. But I don't know if he really thought he won the fight or he was just kind of doing the Brazilian thing, like
Yeah.
I was impressed. I picked Zalal in this one because I expected Woodson to gas out. He did not. If Woodson can make 145 pounds and he can fight, I mean, this wasn't a barn burner, but it was a moderately paced kickboxing match for 3 rounds.
Heavy wrestling.
Where he had to defend himself against a guy who wanted to wrestle him. If he can do that, he's a problem all of a sudden because, man, his punching is really pretty.
And his takedown defense looked much better. I think he got taken down 2 or 3 times, but he was, I mean, Yusuf Salal tried like 15 times. So some of the things that stood out to me, I feel like there's a lot of improvements for both these guys. I still like Yusuf Salal. I like both these guys. Sean Woodson, he's as the commentators said, he's good. Every fight's gonna be like that. He's gonna have to fight off every fight. But because he's so tall, he has that natural tall man's defense where you can like lift him up, and how you normally lift the guys up this high, he's still on his tippy toes.
Yep.
So that helps him. But unless he gets more active on the feet, he's going to lose fights because if you're not throwing your hands, when you get taken out, you didn't give yourself a big enough gap to still win that round. You know what I mean? Like I think about it like almost like a point system. If they get 5 points for a takedown, well, you got to get yourself 6 points on the feet before you get taken down. And one thing he doesn't do is he needs to feint more. He was so worried, especially early of Zalal's takedowns, that he wasn't doing anything. He actually was losing the stand-up a little bit in the first round. And the way you got to draw out the takedowns and you still a feint so they shoot, and then now you can counter it with your hands. He needs to do that. And as far as Zalal, I think he was trying to pull him into the takedowns, which I think was a bad strategy because he was pulling him towards the cage, which helps the tall man's defense. You got it because you can't turn a corner. The way you get around a tall man's defense in wrestling is to be able to turn a corner. How do you do that? You got to shoot in the middle, so you can, you know what I mean? Like you can turn the angle. That was my issue. I still like both these guys, as it seems like you do too. And the first fight of the night, Jordan Levitt versus Claudio Puelles. Puelles won a grappling match.
We're not worthy. Keith Schillen on Wednesday night said, like, after I gave, I gave a little bit of, analysis. And then Keith was just like, Jordan Levitt's a terrible striker. And until that changes, I'm going to keep picking against him. Damn if you weren't right.
Well, I was bad. I was extremely low on him before, and I'm extremely lower on him now because he once again, he showed absolutely no striking. And that was actually probably the most strikes he landed in his career. There was like 4 kicks he landed. He's not a wrestler. I know he comes from a wrestling background, but he's not a wrestler. He's a grappler, but he's not Roger Gracie he got out grappled by Claudio Puelles. And when Puelles first shot for a takedown, I was like, what is he doing? Like you should have an advantage on the feet. And then when he put him on his back and he was starting to control him, I go, oh my God, I'm an idiot. This is absolutely brilliant. Because you got a topside grappler, well, put him on his back where he's not used to. And he wore him out. And to me, Levitt looked horrendous tonight. And I don't even know he's fighting next fight, but I'm probably picking that guy.
Here's the only interesting question I can think of to ask about this one. Is it fixable for Levitt? Because when he is in his world, and it's a very narrow world, as we've pointed out, it's the world that consists of people he can get to the ground in the position he wants. Like, he's not even a guy where if you take him down, he's going to triangle you in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, but he's impressive in his world. Is it fixable? Is it fixable on a UFC level? Can he become a Ryan Hall type who sticks around and beats some people despite having a lot of holes in his game?
See, I don't even look at him as one-dimensional. I look at him as like one tool that will work for him. He has that, he shoots in a leg and he does that like rolling underneath crotch lift. That's what they call it. He kind of tries to do, or so that sometimes it's like a rolling underneath Navy ride that he likes to do, and then he tries catching. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but at least if I'm seeing it correctly too. And then he, attacks ankles and stuff. Like, I don't even see him as this like Ryan Hall who can get you in any position. Remember Cody McKenzie. Remember
I remember Cody.
Remember
McKenzie,
if you
yes.
came in and you got anywhere near that, he'd jump up and he'd lock in that guillotine.
Yep.
And that was like it. It was so deep. He'd have that arm so deep and you were done. But then once it got figured out, there was nothing left to him. I feel the same way about Jordan Levitt. I feel like he got figured out tonight. Take him down. He can't. His takedown defense was terrible. Put him on his back. He's going to lose. Or the opposite. If he can't take you down, you're going to beat him up on the feet. He seems like, and I feel bad because I'm like giving this guy a lot of shit. He seems like the nicest guy on the planet. Like, he's a nerd. He read, like, they were talking about him reading like 150 books or whatever. Like, he's the guy, like, I kind of want him to be successful. I really do.
Yep.
I just don't see it.
That fair enough, man. Like, I find myself agreeing.
Yeah. Bass is saying you talked crap about Jordan Wright. Look at him now. You're right. I didn't like Jordan Wright either, and Jordan Wright is doing well. So, good call. Bass has given it to me twice now tonight. Let's get to the fun stuff. The Bulls, the Bears, the cut list. What do you want to do first?
Might as well get the cut list out of the way.
I have two names.
You have two?
Yep. How many do you have?
I'm not sure I have any.
All right, I'll give you.
Wait, are we counting Tom Breeze?
I was counting Tom Breeze.
Okay, then I have one.
All right, the other one I had was Lariano Staropoli. He's on a 3-fight losing streak.
I feel bad cutting a guy who like stepped up on short notice to fight a weight class up. That's the only reason I'd give him another chance. Like, losing to Salikov and Means isn't like, that's not like off the charts bad. But like, I feel bad punishing a guy for stepping up on short notice.
Yeah, that's true. But he moved up weight because he couldn't make weight against Tim Means. Like, he's at middleweight for good now. Like, that's not
okay.
But no,
I'm still hesitant, to cut a guy who stepped up as a replacement opponent. And more to the point, I think there's almost an unspoken understanding that the UFC wouldn't do that to you. Like, if you're doing them the solid, you probably get another one.
Fair enough. So he is not on the cut list, but Tom Breeze is officially on the Schilling and Duffy Show cut list, as we both had him on our list. Let's get to the Bulls and the Bears, guys. If you have never seen the show, the Bulls and the Bears is basically a stock market reference. When a stock is going up, it's a bull stock, or it's a market's going well, it's a bull market. When it's going down, it's a bear market. So you want to be on the Bulls list, you don't want to be on the Bears list. We do it like 3 stars of the night, hockey style, so we can pick up to 3. 3, 2, 1, 1 being the best one. You want to do Bulls or Bears?
I would say let's go ahead and do the Bears.
All right. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
All right, good.
My bottom bear is Tanner Boser. Just to go back out and lose the third round the way he did after almost finishing the fight in the second. That's tough. I mean, it's heavyweight. Anyone like heavyweight's always going to have weird outcomes, but if you can't finish a fight, or at least finish out a fight that you were winning that badly, it's going to be tough to match you going forward, and it's certainly going to be tough to get into the top 10. So that's my bottom bear. Next one, Ariane Lipski. I'm not accusing anybody of anything without evidence, but Ariane Lipski has simply not looked the same since she's come over from KSW. And quite a few fighters that come over from continental Europe, this happens, which is why I was fading Manon Fiorot 6 months ago. Because when you come over from continental Europe and your game has run on being able to physically bully people, sometimes that mysteriously goes away when you get to the UFC. That's
what are you saying, Ben?
Lipski got ragdolled. And I mean, if you get ragdolled by Montana De La Rosa, who's like, you and I are both high on her potential, but right now she's 500 in the UFC.
Yeah.
Like, there's just not much place for you to go. And that's extremely disappointing for someone who came over as one of the more heralded free agents to enter the UFC in the last 5 years. Number one.
Hold on. Montana De La Rosa's daughter is national champion in wrestling.
It's
10 years old. There's a girl. My son goes to a wrestling judo club. And there's a girl who's about 10 years old that I would put up against anybody. This girl is incredible. Who's won a bunch of national championships herself. Forget it. Carry
on. Number one, I'm going to go ahead and throw in, with all sadness, Walt Harris. Talk about heavyweight being unforgiving if you can't finish a fight that you had nailed down. Dude, he had this one, and he was even addressing it in a better way than he had the Overeem fight, where he really just kind of freaked out and blew his tank. That's not what lost him this fight. What lost him this fight are just the fundamental holes in his game. His takedown defense is so bad, and he's so hapless when he gets on the ground. And yeah, Marcin Tybura is a pretty good UFC heavyweight who's at the edges of the rankings, and Walt just had nothing for him. So bummer as it is, I think he's the one whose stock probably took the biggest hit.
Yeah. You had a couple on my list, so I'm going to change it up. So my number 3 is previously undefeated Dana White Contender Series alumni. There was 2 of them tonight. Ooh. They both took losses. Jordan Levitt and Miguel Baeza, so it was not a good night to be an undefeated Contender Series alumni. As we already said, I don't think Baeza took too much loss in this fight, this night, but I love playing the themes. Yep. My number 2, Yusuf Salal. This is a guy that started off his run in the UFC 3-0. We got really excited about how young he was. He's lost three in a row now. Now, he lost to 3 good fighters. I think, really good fighters in the division. But, I mean, he's at 500 right now in the UFC. But my number 1, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, Tom Breeze. Tom Breeze's stock went down the worst. Regardless, maybe it was bad luck. I'm hoping maybe it was he pulled his groin muscle or something, but probably not likely. Move over to the Bulls. I'll go first this time. So these are the ones who had a good night. Muslim Salikov. He picked up the biggest name in his career, beating Francisco Trinaldo, which is always, even at 42, was he 42, 43, 142? 42. I don't know. He's up there in age. It's still a tough out for anybody. He's won 5 fights in a row now, Muslim Salikov. We're talking about him facing guys just outside the top 15, so his stock has risen. Number 2, keeping the theme going for 5 in a row, Marcin Tybura. He's 5-fight winning streak. Ben's going to reach out to him and interview him this week as punishment for continuing to pick against Marcin Tybura. But my number 1 bull, who had the best night, whose stock rose the most, it's not a fighter. It's Michael Bisping for calling the go to the body left hook. He called it in the main event. Michael Bisping's stock as a commentator absolutely rose.
Beautiful.
Ben, who are your bulls?
Okay, bulls. Montana De La Rosa. Yeah, she was a favorite, but like you said, she seems like a fighter who is at the same time improving and being willing to embrace what she knows she's good at. That's a good thing, because for someone with Montana De La Rosa's just physical gifts and skill set, it starts with winning the fight you're supposed to win. She won a fight she was supposed to win tonight. Number 2, Gregory Rodriguez.
Yeah.
People debut in the UFC out of LFA all the time. 5 of the last 6 LFA middleweight champs have been plucked by the UFC within 3 months of winning the title. Most of them haven't made this big a splash. He walked right in, beat a fighter that we both at least thought was a pretty damn good fighter, and incredibly, cut the weight to have 3-round gas at 185 pounds, looking the way he does. Fantastic. Number 1, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I'm doing this just to avoid yours, but Rozenstruik, maybe he's got a little of the mojo back. He could lose this fight. He could win this fight. The most worrisome thing would be if he still looked gun shy and tentative. That wasn't really a problem. And then he did Rozenstruik things. Touched the guy once in the closing seconds of the round, and there wasn't even a question of surviving. It was over.
There you have it, guys. There's our Bulls and the Bears. Let's close the show up with a grade. I'll go first. I give it a C. And the reason why I only gave it a C, the prelims was really bad. I was given individual fights Fs, and but the main event and the co-main event both delivered to me. And then of course Ponzinibbio versus Baeza really saved this from being a D. So I give it a C for my overall grade of the card. What did you score it?
I give it a C-. I'm probably a little harsher on it because I got more fights wrong, so it just makes me bitter. If you pull Ponzinibbio versus Baeza out of this is the worst card of the year.
Yeah.
Even that fight of the year candidate is the only thing that even pulls this up to a C- for me. Absolutely. That and the fact that it was over by 9 p.m. my time.
Yeah, that definitely helped. And speaking of time, it is 11:34 on the East Coast. We did it. We covered the entire fight before midnight. We went about an hour. We had an hour and 27. That's counting that 5-minute clock countdown. Didn't go as deep as we normally do. Unfortunately, there was not as much to talk about. But we will make it up. If you like long talk, winded talk, we will make it up on our next recap, as me and Ben will be back recapping UFC 263. There's lots. We got 2 title fights, middleweight title fight, flyweight title fight, and of course we have Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards on that card. As of today, there's 15 fights on the card. It's loaded, depth and name value. If you care before the event and you want to hear previews and predictions, me and Ben also do a preview and prediction. We tape it Wednesday night, so usually kind of comes out. That one is not live. We tape it. It usually comes up early Thursday morning. And we're going to have a little different format, I think, right? Is that still the plan, Ben?
Yep, I think we'll different format. It'll be all the information you've come to love plus our faces.
There you go. The people have been saying, we want to see Ben's beautiful face. That's what people were saying. So we're going to give them what they want. So there you guys have it. Thank you guys for all the people who was on the chat talking through. We apologize for the last 2 cards. I was 2 weeks ago during the Chandler Oliveira one. I was supposed to do it with another one. Something came up, extremely serious thing. I got pulled. I actually didn't even get to watch the card live. And then last week was just last event was I was traveling, and it was just another disaster. But we're back to normal. We'll try to crank as many of these out as we can. Thank you guys for listening. See you.